what we're trying to do. So basically, the idea was sensory marketing, specifically at the retail outlet. How can that like help improve sales or what's happening over there? Had told us that you worked with Calvin Klein and Arrow, and I just wanted to get your opinion and maybe if any like specific interventions you had done to improve the sales of any stores or anything that you can share about how it had helped you or how you were able to use some aspects of this.
No, sure. I think first of all, your project is very interesting because where we shop directly sort of impacts if we do at all, and if we do, how much of it we do. Because what we're trying to do, especially the more elevated ones, the more luxury ones, are trying to bring us into their world as much as possible. Because only when we are fully, sold on the idea of why Louis Vuitton or Dior or Chanel exists, what is their history, why are we paying a premium of thousands of euros on each handbag when that handbag, you could buy from, I mean, a bag is a bag, right? It's functional. You have to put things into it and it must close so it doesn't get wet in the rain. But why is one bag 4,000 euro starting and the other one 40 euro, So I think the onus is on the brands at that point of time to educate, to sort of, and even more than educate is to sort of delight us. We're not looking for an encyclopedia of when did Mr. Vuitton start making trunks. What we're looking for is to be brought into their world. If you think about it, Akhil, as in terms of fashion retail, if you think of the fashion shows that brands do, the fashion show is the beginning of the dream where you're trying to tell people what the creative designer has come up with, why your brand is more desirable than the other ones because the story is so compelling. What the store does is take that in bits and pieces and then put it into the customer's life. Not all of us get to attend these shows, but we can buy into a little bit of that's going on through their stores. At least 35% of the business comes from repeat business, and it's very high value business. That 35% is at least 50% of the overall, that 35% is shopping for 50% of your revenue. They know when collections launch, they know when that store has last seen a paint job, they know the story that was sold last season. To them, what they're looking for, in audiences like India is not so much, what is the grand vision of the designer, but they're looking for novelty, they're looking for freshness, they're looking for something that puts their shopping experience in India on par with something they would do perhaps in Dubai or in Paris or in Tokyo. The stores all need to look the same. They need to live and breathe the same language. And there needs to be something from the product that is pulled out into the world of retail, whether it's your visual units in the windows, whether it's the wallpaper on the walls, whether it's the scent. In Tommy, we always have Mr. Hilfiger's favorite diptyque scent that is always burning in all his stores across the world. At Calvin Klein, we had Raf Simons come on board a few years ago as the creative director. Mr. Simons, thinking man's designers who's not really too much into the glamour of it. He's very, very well respected, has created product for Jill Sander, the brand he used to work at before this, and then at Dior Couture, bringing a very refined, minimal Belgian sensibility into his world. So Calvin Klein went through a seismic shift at that point in advertising, in the kind of models that we use, in the kind of storytelling that we did, where Calvin Klein was a very high gloss, sexy brand. If you think about the campaigns with people like Eva Mendes or even Justin Bieber, it was a very sexual brand, so to speak, and that's what the brand is. When Raf came on board, what happened with the campaign was that it became much more fashionable. Like we still worked with Kim Kardashian, we still worked with Kendall Jenner, but the way they were shot was as a family. And instead of being in a high glossy studio, Raf took them into the jungle. They were in a barn, and they were sort of, they had a picnic blanket that he had designed. This picnic blanket was then manufactured by his team and sent across to all the stores across the world, so that it could be draped over the furniture, it could be put over a sofa, it could hang in the window. What we did in India was we also changed the material of the fixtures, and before they were this high gloss white, if you think of luxury, you always think of that white glossy luxury feel, but we
Right.
changed all of that and we stripped it back to just unfinished concrete.
If you could like throw some more light on like the type of music and sense and how maybe those elements also play a role in all of these stores.
Our events, our stores, our imagery all sort of reflect that, that K-pop world, but in a very elevated, pulled black. It's not the neon world that we are used to for,
Okay.
K-pop, but it's a very pulled black and white, minimal world. The scents that we use for Calvin Klein are our own scents. I mean, Calvin Klein has some of the most iconic perfumes in the world, whether it's one or eternity. It depends on what the season is. It depends on what it is. But the world of Calvin Klein will always smell like Calvin Klein.
Hmm.
Whereas for Tommy, it's far more fluid in that way, in which we are far more seasonal. In the spring,
Okay.
there'll be just flowers in store. We only use fresh flowers in store. What else? The music is, of course, it helps if you have a pop star as your,
Hmm.
your brand ambassador. So the music right now in Canvas stores is all mostly his music, because then we can live in that world entirely. Otherwise, say for example, for Tommy Hilfiger, globally there is an entire team that sits down and puts together a playlist of music that will play from Dubai to Indore or Bhopal. The same music will play across the world, and it is handcrafted and curated based on what the brand is trying to say at that point of time. The idea is to standardize the experience as much as possible across
Hmm.
the world. If you're looking at in-store retail aesthetics, multi-sensorially, take a look at Dover Street Market in Tokyo, and even the visual merchandising they do in their stores, Akhil, is very whimsical. There is
Okay.
there are things that one can't explain why they're there at all. Store that you can go check out. In fact, that's just opened, and I had Aksha over for the opening. Is called J. That they go to craft pockets across India and they work with the grassroots artisans at a very personal level. So what Monica, who's a dear friend of mine, wanted to do with this as well was to make it not just a place where people could buy, but also experience. So the walls of her store are essentially 200 shawls from the region of Barmer in Rajasthan. The style of weaving is called pattu, weave is, and the whole store is plastered with that. Even just the way the product is displayed, each piece is shown as a museum piece because the product is very expensive. I don't know if you've seen the lines yourself, but at Gallery Lafayette in Louis Vuitton, every day the line to just get in is at least 24 people long at any point of time, because they'll only let in a certain number of people at a time, because you don't want to crowd the store as well. And if you think about the Birkin, how they put you on a waiting list for that 20,000 pound bag,
Right.
uh, you can't buy it immediately. It's nowhere for sale. You have to get on even if you're Victoria Beckham, you have to be on a small wait list,
Right. Right.
because you limit the number of people who have the handbag, or you limit the number of people who are getting into the store. It's still luxury demand setting. So yeah.
And that concludes our journey into the captivating world of sensory marketing in retail. From the Payless and Palessi experiment to the impact of online stores on brick and mortar, delving into the luxury retail experience and gaining insights from a seasoned marketer. Thank you for joining us on this podcast.